Chainsaw Man Chapter 145 just raised the stakes in a major way that is going to have a major impact on the series moving forward, but all of us who are saying that Yoshida had to have already known that Mitaka was the war devil, and while it was strongly implied that he got his suspicions confirmed when he's talking to Fami, this chapter finally has him making his move by striking down Mitaka, making it exactly clear he knows who and exactly what she is, right when Mitaka least expects it, which is the most evil of cliffhangers that you can end a chapter on, because we want to know what happens right away. Obviously, if it's Mitaka versus Yoshida in the next chapter, Yoshida's gonna cook her, but if we start talking about Yoru, that's gonna be a different conversation altogether. So with my initial thoughts out of the way, let's back things up and let's dive into the review itself, because there's a lot to unpack here. So the chapter opens up with public safety having already made light work out the Church of Chainsaw Man, and in typical government fashion, we see that they're already thinking of how they can spin this to their benefit, saying they need to get the faces of the kids and the parents crying on camera for the world to see. What we see here is that there's both a need to control the narrative as well as control the situation in general, because they also talk about taking these kids to the Devil Control Center. I think this one page shows the brilliance of the world that Fujimoto's created, and in a way, he's been able to show that the characters, they have repercussions for their actions. Minors can't make devil contracts unless they've been specifically approved for people like Yoshida, and it makes complete sense. Look at how Yuko, a minor, was spun out of control by the Justice Devil, what we think was the Justice Devil, and how much Mitaka has changed since getting into contact with Yoru, the War Devil. However, by showing the lows that the government is willing to stoop to for optics, shows exactly why Kishibe told Denji, this time you're gonna raise the Control Devil. Her name is Nayuta, and try not to turn her into another Makima. Instead of seeing Nayuta begging for food in a childish way like we got in the chapter, she would have been cold and calculated like these public safety workers that we see, because that's what happened to Makima when she was raised with the absence of love. The panels like this really shows why Fujimoto, when it comes to storytelling and character writing, in my opinion, he's in a class by himself that only Oda and Togashi are in the same room as. When we learn that the government is now targeting Asa Mitaka, and we see exactly why her stepping out into the public was a bad thing, because she's now made herself a target, and at some point those who walk around with a target on their backs will eventually have to seek out a resolution to the issue that they now have a target on their backs that people are going to want to actually land the hit on. That's the curse of being strong and being openly strong. You're going to have people who fear the power that you possess if they can't control it, or if you're not an ally, and then you're going to have people who try to destroy you because of your power, because they deem you as a liability, which is what happened right now with Mitaka now that she's aligned herself with the Church of Chainsaw Man. Fujimoto builds on this further with this one member of public safety flat out saying that they wish that she would have turned Chainsaw Man into a weapon. It just puts into perspective how tight of a leash that Denji's actually on right now. They tolerate him, in my opinion, but eventually he's gonna be the one that's taken out. It's only a matter of when, in terms of when they target him, and that's because at some point they're not gonna be able to control Denji. Right now they can control Denji because they're threatening Nayuta's well-being, but it just makes you realize how they view Denji. Ultimately, he's a weapon, a disposable one at that. This also makes you wonder if there are other plans for both Nayuta as well as for Asa Mitaka. We were told that they would kill Nayuta if Denji got out of line and transformed into Chainsaw Man, but now I have to actually wonder about that. If they were somehow able to get control over Mitaka and she made Chainsaw Man into a weapon, there's a chance they don't kill Nayuta and they try to use her as a tool like they attempted to do with Makima. She's too valuable to kill, in my opinion, and she's still young enough that she can be molded into what they want, assuming all things go right, which ultimately they're not because of how connected Nayuta is to Denji. Meanwhile, Barm is being taken into custody and given the choice to join public safety, just like Katana Man was able to do, but this is where things get really interesting, is the plot twist that Fujimoto drops in this chapter regarding the Justice Devil after they identify the remains of the Justice Devil deep within the Church of Chainsaw Man. According to them, the contracts that were made, they were never truly with the Justice Devil like we were led to believe, which means Fujimoto is cooking up something else as we head towards the inedible Nostradamus moment that is coming, because the Justice Devil has been a prevalent character in Chainsaw Man Part 2, and it seems like Fujimoto has something bigger and darker planned for what the climax for Chainsaw Man Part 2 is actually setting up. The use of red herrings to distract us from what's actually going on is a clever bit of writing for the story that I personally enjoy when it's done correctly, and I think this is a great example of it because it now makes us go back and look over the events of Chainsaw Chainsman Part 2 and look for clues that we might have missed because of this big reveal. It's then that we see that Mitaka is being ordered to surrender, and Yoru is smiling at the change that's occurred in Mitaka and the fact that she's changed so much since coming into contact with her, because Mitaka has already thought up a contingency plan to turn her apartment into a weapon to be used in battle should it ever come down to it, which shows that as time has actually passed, Mitaka's character has grown in ways that now seem obvious as we look back at what's happened in the story. It appears as if she's accepted her fate by sharing her body with Yoru and everything that comes with that, and the progression's been right in our faces this entire time. And I think it's easy to overlook because of how slow Chainsman Part 2 has been in comparison to Chainsman Part 1. Throughout Chainsman Part 2, she's been giving up parts of herself and attachments throughout the entire story. She gave up her body to Yoru to escape death in the first chapter. She gave up the school uniform that her mother purchased for her to make that school uniform sword using Yoru's power. She gave up her friendship with Yuko, ultimately due to changes that Yuko had undergone by making the contract that she did. She lost her cell phone that her mother once owned in the Eternity Devil Return at the aquarium. She lost her privacy by assisting the Church of Chainsmen, and now she's willing to lose her home in the traditional sense by turning her home into a weapon. It's a really brilliant progression for her character, and that low-key deserves its own video that I might do in the future, since it's been a while since we've done a Chainsman discussion video, which I've got a huge Makima video being worked on right now that you guys are really gonna enjoy. However, ending off the chapter with Yoshida chopping off Mitaka's arm right when she's about to turn her apartment into a weapon, it makes me wonder if we're gonna see more of Mitaka's forward thinking, because if she already had a backup plan in place, then she clearly thought out in advance what she would do if someone targeted her from the government. And it makes me think that she actually has more weapons that we haven't even considered that she's going to be able to pull out if she does indeed have to fight against Yoshida in the next chapter. Now, the big thing we have to ask here is, was Yoshida acting alone here? Fujimoto clearly knows we want to see Reze, and we've had all these other hybrids come back, but we've never had Reze actually show up, so makes me wonder if Reze's there. So let's say, for instance, if Yoshida's fighting by himself, he's a formidable foe that both Mitaka and Yoru are going to have to deal with, because Yoshida was already pretty skilled in Part 1. Even though when he fought against Kwanzi in Chainsman Part 1, he held his own for a brief period of time, and considering how fast and strong she is, that's something to be extremely proud of. Yoshida is a very, very good combatant. However, if he has someone like Kwanzi or Reze there with him, then Yoru's absolutely cooked whenever she takes over Asa Mitaka's body. Now, speaking of cook, part of me wonders if this isn't setting the groundwork for the Death Devil to be introduced in the Chainsman. Yoshida has already spoken about the Death Devil before. We have 3 out of the 4 horsewomen in Fami, Yoru, and Nayuta. The only one missing is the Death Devil, and there appears to be another devil pulling the strings behind all this, and we have a Chainsman church giving us the perfect bridge between the defeat of Chainsman's church and the Death Devil being introduced, since death is a constant subject in religious texts. Fujimoto is clearly using the funneling method in writing to take what feels like a bunch of disjointed storylines that don't appear to actually build on top of one another and slowly bring them together, the same way when you pour water or oil down a funnel. It starts out completely loose and then it all goes into one narrow direction. I think that's what we're getting here, to bring all these different disjointed storylines together for a major payoff where a big chunk of the pie is actually revealed. Whenever an author takes a slow approach like this, there's usually a big reveal being cooked up, which I definitely think is what we're getting here, because the chess pieces feel like they're almost set in place, because this was a huge reveal with the Justice Devil, which brings me to my chapter question. Who do you think the identity of this mysterious devil is? Or you think that over? Click here to watch these other Chainsman videos.